certain reasons for that. Hmm? So LM potencies, but still, Dr. Patel, Dr. Kunsley, Dr. Smith, Dr. Chowdhury, and Dr. Sankaran, they have also repeatedly said that there are some certain cures with the use of LM potencies. Okay. Then Boger has his own views that he has used all potencies. Morland, okay, he says that uh, purely local conditions he has used lower potencies, superficial, lower conditions, organ remedies, tissue remedies. All these are used in the lower potencies. Okay, and Clark says he has used lower potencies from 1C to 3C, which he found very useful, and he said that in the chronic diseases higher dilutions will be required. This is all about the different doctors suggesting different kinds of potencies. Gravold, he said there are certain rules for the use of potencies. So what are these rules? On what kind of rules we are going to prescribe the potencies? Now, first rule is that if we have to act on single parts against single qualitative cause, we had better use the lower potencies. Like suppose there is a hemorrhage, either before or after childbirth, you can't give higher potencies. That is what he says. Okay, so you have to give lower potencies. Hmm. With higher potencies, he had the experience that symptoms pass away quietly, leaving no trace. So that is his experience. So he says that higher potencies can also be given in certain conditions, and you will find that there is absolutely means the symptoms which the patient is suffering from quietly leave. So even the patient doesn't know how he felt better. Okay, so that's the amazing thing about the higher potencies. In dealing with the change of the process of reduction of oxidation or vice versa, you can say he used the low potencies. So he says that we should use lower potencies, lower dilutions while you are related to the patient who has certain changes of processes, okay, of reduction or oxidation going on in the body. Then further, to dissolve the process of retention, higher potencies can also be used. Nutritive remedies, okay, they act better in lower potencies. Okay, now nutritive remedies are usually the biochemic medicines, tissue remedies which you use. They can be better used in lower potencies. That is what he says. Okay, functional remedies can be used in high dilutions. Then sixth rule, he says that in chronic cases, especially when it is based upon retention, also in cases of nitrogenoid constitutions, then one can give the higher potencies. Okay, these are the recommendations of Dr. Crowell. Now Dr. Kent, what he says, okay, he gave higher potencies also, moderate medium potencies also. But he said that mostly higher potencies work very well. Okay? And Kant also used the mental generals, mental particulars. Okay, so mind, gave more importance to the mind while studying a case. Okay? So very careful observation of 30 years and comparison with various potencies. Okay, he said that every physician should have at command the 30th potencies, 200 potency, 1M, 10M, 50M, CM, DM, and MM potencies. Whether all these potencies should be at present, you should have it at your homeopathic pharmacy. Okay, and he found that 30th and the 10M potencies are more curative, okay, especially in the sensitive women and children. Okay, that is his advice. So further he wrote that when the simillimum is found, the remedy will act curatively in a series of potencies. Sometimes what happens when you take the totality of symptoms, you have the portrait of the disease, then what you give a certain medicine. Okay, so the person gets relief, but again he comes with the same symptoms at a reduced intensity. Okay, so it's taking some time, but there is a reduction, there is a relief. So what you can do in series of potencies, okay, suppose you are given 30 potency, then you can increase it to 200 and then you can go for 1M. So in that way, in series of potencies, it can cure. That is what Dr. Kent says. So if the remedy is only partially similar, it will act in one or two potencies. Then the symptoms will change and a new remedy will be required. Okay, that also he says that if you are selecting a remedy which is only partially similar, then you will find that okay, one or two potencies it will act, but then you will find that new symptoms are coming. Okay, then you will require a new remedy. Okay, so in this way he writes his experience. Dr. Nash, what he says, he is in favor of medium and high potencies. Okay, and Pulford, he says lower potencies can simply allay the predisposition, whatever the predisposition of the patient. Okay, or so either it can be palliation or suppression, it can cause the lower potencies. And the low curative remedies, which range from 30x to 200 potencies. Okay, he has used for the acute cases, and he said doesn't rely upon, or they are not a part of the deep chronic malady also. Okay. And the medium curative remedies, they range from cc to 10 m potencies in subacute cases, of all which rest upon some deeper dyscrasia. So higher potencies, they range from 10 m up to the uh, gave it for the chronic curable cases. Okay, up to 10 m he has given. Then you find that the Dr. Robert, he also advises that if the symptoms are very similar, then we can go as high as we can wish to. Okay, so we can go for the very high potencies too. And if we are very less sure about the similarity, well, you are taken the case, but you are not sure that the symptoms similar you are giving it exactly. So then you have to start with lower potencies. Also, he says that if there is a pathology, okay, some pathological condition, then medium potencies or high potencies, they can be dangerous. So you have to start with again lower potencies. So that's what Dr. Roberts advises us. Dr. John Weir, he says from his 35 years of experience in homeopathy, he says that lower potencies should be used for physical illnesses, external conditions, and skin conditions. So when mental symptoms are more prominent, then high potencies should be given. Dr. Kent also says the same thing. Okay, so depending on the mental characteristics, if they are quite matching, then you can give the higher potencies. Dr. Constantine Herring, he says that if the symptoms of the case generally have more resemblance to the primary symptoms of the drug, then lower potencies can be given. And if there is a more resemblance with the symptoms, then you can give the higher potency. So more the resemblance, more the similarity, more accurate the portrait of the disease with the remedy, then you can select the higher potencies. That is what Dr. Herring says. Then you have the experience of Dr. Yingling. Yingling is a remarkable homeopathic obstetrician. Okay, homeopathic obstetrician. He writes that there is no question that the crude or very low potency will cure when the homeopathic to the disease condition. When it is homeopathic to the disease condition, that means that when this similar symptom similarity is there, then even the crude potency, lower potency will cure, because he was obstetrician condition, and earlier doctors have also said that lower potencies can be given for women and the conditions. Okay, sensitive women and conditions, lower potencies can be given. So according to his experience, he found that they are curative in the disease condition. Experience teaches and establishes the fact that high and higher potencies act more promptly and efficiently and will cure the cases, especially the chronic cases. So again, he also advocates higher potencies, and he says that efficiently it will work, promptly it will work, and will cure the cases, and especially the chronic cases. Then he talks about the crude potencies. He says that won't help much. Okay, and it is erroneous to suppose that higher potencies excel in the treatment of chronic cases and are not efficient in the acute stages of disease. So he says that higher potency is not only in the chronic cases but also in acute cases you can give when there is a symptom similarity. Then Dr. Hubbard says the diseases of psychic origin, okay, they also require higher potencies. Okay, mental, psychic, intellect. Okay, in these conditions also higher potencies work very well. Okay. Dr. Hubbard prefers high potencies in cases with marked mental symptoms. Now, just like Dr. Ken, she also recommends higher potencies in the symptoms, mental symptoms, diseases with more mental symptoms. Okay. And she also writes that in desperately ill cases, okay, where the fight of life is very active, like in the acute diseases, then also higher potencies are indicated. Okay, so that's her experience. Also, she says that in the terminal stages of chronic disease, if higher potencies are given, then it will induce euthanasia. Okay, जब critical रहता है patient उस time में higher potencies नहीं देना चाहिए. Okay, so if you give higher potencies in that critical cases, terminal stage of a disease, a chronic disease, then it can lead to what, silent death. Okay. And then in chronically incurable cases, unless the vitality is very good and there is not much pathology also, at that time you will find that low and medium potencies are very suitable. Okay. That's her experience regarding. Also, she says that the susceptibility of the patient also influences the potency. So it's very important to understand the susceptibility of the patient. So what is susceptibility? It is the reaction of the patient to the medicine. Okay, so you have to understand, like certain people have the very easy susceptibility. They are very every medicine you give, they can prove it also. Okay, so it is like a immunity of the patient, okay, or sensitivity of the patient. So the degree of susceptibility of the patient also influences the potency selection. You can find that certain people, they are very oversensitive. Okay, and if you give any medicine, they will prove that medicine. Okay, so at that time they will require what, medium potencies and lower potencies. Some people, they are very sluggish. Okay, so sluggish people usually who have been drugged by many crude medicines. Okay, already they have gone to many doctors and they have come. Okay, just a second.